So here we are. I was going to do a video on Radulov where he might sign, going through cap friendly, and Kuznetsov. What? Because I noticed that the Capitals are down to $4 million in cap space, and they've still got players to pick up. $7.8 million for 8 years. I like Kuznetsov. I think he's fine. 77 points in 15-16, 59 points this past year, 10 points in 13 games in the playoffs this year, 2 points in 12 games in the playoffs last year. 8 years, $7.8 million. He better work out. Like, long term, the Capitals, I'm trying to grasp this. You're a team with cap trouble. Almost $8 million a year for Kuznetsov. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And you can point to the 77-point season and say, well, that was a really good year, so that's what they're paying him on. This past season, he wasn't as effective offensively. And I guess that's the going rate. I just look at this as a Canucks fan and say, wow, how much is Horvat worth again? For anybody who's got a restricted free agent sitting out there right now, this term and number has to make you do a little bit of a double take. Ryan Johansson has to be doing backflips in Nashville right now. Because $7.8 million, 8 years, if this sets market value by the Washington Capitals, there's going to be some very happy restricted free agents right now. I'm not arguing against his talent. I'm not. I know that he is a very good player. He's got a lot going for him, but this is going to set the market. And Ryan Johansson came out of last year with a $4 million cap hit, but a $6 million salary. So that's part of the reason why he's looking for $8 million. You can look at this contract now for Kuznetsov and say, well, Johansson's a year younger, had more points last year, less goals, but more points than Kuznetsov, played a bigger role on a team that ended up going to the Stanley Cup Finals. So maybe Johansson does deserve more money. So it's going to put some teams in a bind. Tampa's got Tyler Johnson. They've got Andre Palat. Johnson, 45 points. Palat, 52 points. Granlund, 69 points in Minnesota. He had a $3 million cap hit last year. How happy is Michael Granlund seeing how much money is being handed out to Kuznetsov? Michael Granlund, I think age-wise, yep, same age, 25. Galchenyuk's 23. I know Galchenyuk had a down year, but he had 44 points in 61 games. That projects out to about 54, 55 points. So for Montreal fans who are like, Galchenyuk won't get more than this amount, he might now. It all depends on whether or not this moves the market. One of two things is going to happen. Either we're going to see restricted free agents getting the big name or the big money, big term contracts like Kuznetsov just got, or Washington overpaid. And those are the only two outcomes from this that I can see. And again, I like Kuznetsov and I like the Capitals, but I look at this and I look at this combined cap hit. Like, if you look at, I didn't mean to go into Montreal. If you look at the Caps now, let's just take a look at them. What this does to them. So they've got Ovechkin at $9.5 million, Backstrom at $6.7 million. Oshie was just signed for $5.7. So between Oshie and Backstrom, they're now paying $13 million a year. So between Ovechkin, Kuznetsov, Backstrom, and Oshie, that's 12, 20. That's about $30 million in cap space right there. Johansson's $4.5 million. Eller's $3.5 million. He comes off the books at the end of this coming season. Wilson, $2 million. Beagle, $1.7. On the blue line, they've still got Niskanen at $5.7 and Orpik at $5.5. And Orpik at $5.5 at this point is basically robbery by Brooks Orpik. I'm a little bit surprised that he wasn't bought out during the buyout period, but maybe they figured they couldn't find another guy on the free agent market that could do what he does. Maybe they figured it wasn't worth it. He's over 35. He's got 2 years left. Just ride it out. But then, Orlov, $5.1 million too. So they're a team that knew they were up against the cap. And that's why Shattenkirk walked. That's why Alzner walked. And now Orlov got $5.1 million. Oshie, $5.7. Kuznetsov, $7.8. Apparently, Kuznetsov, Oshie, and Orlov are $18 million in cap space. And cap space, and I've said this in videos before, they're gold. And at the end of this season, Karlsson is up. He's 27. He's a UFA at the end of this year, and he's already making a cap hit of about $4 million. Is he worth $6 million on next year's market? Is he worth $7 million? Grubauer's an RFA right now, so he's negotiating. He's not going to get a big raise, but is he going to get a one-year contract? I look at Washington, and I look at what these guys are getting paid. And while I want to cheer for Washington and say, oh yeah, I'm all on board with Washington, there's no way that I would pick the Washington Capitals as I did last summer for a Stanley Cup. This team right now, I see the amount of money and term being thrown at everybody, and it feels to me like what you give for money and term to a superstar team, to a team that's won Stanley Cups, like a Chicago or a Pittsburgh. I look at the contracts given up by Chicago, Pittsburgh, when Detroit was winning cups. I look at these, and even LA, and I don't have a problem with the contracts because they've won cups, they've won championships, and they want to keep that team together. The Capitals haven't been able to get past the second round. And what I find somewhat upsetting, as a guy who cheered for the Caps this past spring and watched them fall short in a Game 7 again, is that with these big money signings, the money isn't there to populate that bottom six and your depth defensemen that you need in order to compete for a Stanley Cup. They become that team that looks really good on paper until somebody gets hurt. And then they don't have the guys who can step in and play that role. So they're going to be left relying a lot on rookies and on prospects, which means that Jakub Vrana better be ready. They may give Lucas Johansson a look in preseason. Defensemen, they need help on defense. Who else is in here? You Capitals fans can jump in with anybody else you'd like to throw in there, but it's going to be tough going, I think, for the Capitals from here. Is Christian Juice, is he ready to come up? He's got one of the greatest names in hockey, Christian Juice. I just can't think of a better name. They brought over Graovac. They obviously brought him over for expansion reasons, but maybe Graovac gets a role. Peluso's 28. Does he get a fourth line role? And again, when you get into playoff time, and Kuznetsov's a star, and Ovechkin's a bit of a fading star, but he's still capable, and Backstrom is their MVP that people don't talk about enough because everybody's enamored with Holtby and what Ovechkin's doing. But have they shed so much depth at this point? Are they at a point where if there's a key injury during the season, are they potentially bubble team out of the playoffs? Do they go from the top in the regular season to wild card? Because when that depth is gone, and right now I look at Washington and I don't see the kind of depth that they need to win. They've lost a lot of players. Now, when they got Shattenkirk, they ripped off St. Louis to get Shattenkirk, kind of. Shattenkirk, though, when he left St. Louis got better. Their blue line got better. It seemed like Pietrangelo, Bouwmeester, Parayko, and Bortuzzo. It seemed like they all played better once Shattenkirk left, so maybe that was overblown, probably by me. Where does Washington find that depth? They've only got $4 million left under the cap. Yeah, they've only got $4.6 million left under the cap. They still have to re-sign Burakovsky. How much do you give Burakovsky? Does Burakovsky get a $1.5 to $2 million extension for 2 years? Does he get maybe $1 million? And like I said, what happens when Karlsson's up next summer? What does Karlsson get? We saw Shattenkirk get $6 million. What is Karlsson worth on the market? For Burakovsky, had 35 points in 64 games this past season. So Burakovsky is in line for probably $1.5 to $2 million. Because in 15-16 he had 38 points in 79 games. Maybe he gets $2.5 million. So now you'd be down to $2 million in cap space, and from what I see here, they don't even have 6 NHL ready defensemen on their roster. They have Niskanen, Orpik, Orlov, Karlsson, and Chorny. And that's it for NHL-ready defensemen under contract right now for St. Louis. And I would argue that Karlsson's top 4, Orlov's overpaid, Niskanen's good, Orpik's a bit of a hazard, and Chorny is a middle-of-the-road guy. So you can't use him top 4. Let me know what you think about this, especially if you're a Caps fan. And I'm trying not to be too much of a Debbie Downer on this, but they've spent a lot of cap. A lot. And sometimes the smartest move when you've got these guys demanding this money is to go out and get more assets for cheaper and let that superstar, potential superstar in Kuznetsov's case, because he's never scored, I don't think he's ever scored more than 30. I want to say more than 30 in a season. And again, he's a good player. I'm not arguing he's not a good player. I'm just saying for 7.8 for 8 years. And this past season he had 19 goals. The season before he had 20. He had 40 assists this season. He had 57 the year before. I know he's a very good passer, but 7.8 million is a lot of money. And again, GMs seem to be betting that the cap's going to go up. And there's no guarantee that it will. And the Caps, with this year's salary cap, are already in some serious peril. And I thought maybe they could work around it. I don't think they have. So let me know what you guys think. Who do you think they can bring in for cheap to get them from point A to point B? The problem being, even into next summer, this doesn't get fixed because everybody's on a long-term contract. And for the ones that are expiring, none of them are cheap. Like, let's see. And I hate to do this again. Niskanen's got 4 years left. Brooks Orpik has 2 years left, including this season coming up. Orlov got 5 years. 6 years, I should say. Sorry. Chorny expires next summer. Eller expires next summer. Beagle expires next summer. Wilson expires next summer. None of these guys are going to demand big raises. But none of them are making a lot of money now anyways. Other than Karlsson, and Karlsson's going to want to raise. So let me know what you think. How do you fix it? Am I overblowing it? Let me know. If it's been overblown, I will gladly admit it and be happy. But it's going to be tough for them. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. And thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you guys again soon.